And today our adventure will begin right here next to these railroad tracks, located here in the small town of Siler City, North Carolina. Well, good afternoon, my friends. Welcome back to the channel. Hitchhiking Yeti here. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today's going to be a fun one. We're going to do some backroad stuff here in the central part of the state of North Carolina. We're going to check out Siler City. We're going to check out some roadside relics. And also there are a town not too far from here I would like to stop in at that I've never visited before, called Goldston. We're going to go check that out. Should be a good day today. Let's go ahead and get started. Appreciate you being here. Okay, so I'm starting things off right here on the corner of West Raleigh Ave and South Burnt Street. And look at this beautiful wall mural right here. Check that out. It says Chatham Hospital. This is the Chatham Hospital mural. The mural illustrates scenes tied to the early days of healthcare in the community and the founding of Chatham Hospital. It was one of several murals created in the early 2000s as part of a project to revitalize downtown and attract visitors through public art. That is very nice. And right next to that is this mural, which honors 6 Black entrepreneurs who ran businesses on Birch Avenue, that is where we're located, when segregation limited where Black residents could shop and gather. The street once had cafes, barbershops, beauty salons, and other businesses that serve the Black community. So let's talk a little bit about the early settlement of the town of Siler City. So the land around Siler City was first inhabited by Native American tribes, and arrowheads and artifacts have been found throughout Chatham County. European settlers began arriving here in this area in the mid-1700s, many traveling along the Cape Fear River Valley. So one of the earliest families connected to the area was Placard Siler and his wife Elizabeth Siler, who settled nearby and helped shape the region that would later become Siler City. Before it had its modern name, the community was known as Matthews Crossroads around 1842 because it sat at an important intersection of stagecoach routes between Raleigh and Salisbury, North Carolina, and Greensboro and Fayetteville, North Carolina. My goodness, I gotta say something right here. Downtown Cafe seems to be a very, very popular location to get some food, some burgers. People just going in and out of that place. But look right here in this little alleyway what I found. That's right. It is an awesome Coca-Cola mural. Siler City Cash Market. It's the real thing. Drink Coca-Cola. Yeah, that's nice. Almost missed that one. The town's real growth began in the 1880s when the Cape Fear and Yadkin Valley Railroad arrived. The railroad created a stop called Siler Station. A local businessman named Sam Siler donated land for the railroad depot and helped lay out the town's streets. And then by 1887, Siler City was officially incorporated. During the 20th century, Siler City expanded as industries moved in. Major industries included textiles and hosiery mills, furniture manufacturing, agricultural, and poultry processing. So a key example was Siler City Mills, which was built in 1910, which produced grain and supported the farming economy here in the area. By the mid-1900s, the region also became a major upholstery producing area, helping fuel local jobs and the growth of the town. So like many small southern mill towns, Siler City experienced economic shifts when textile and furniture plants closed and started to downsize. Manufacturing started moving overseas, but however, the industries later replaced some of those jobs, especially food and processing and poultry plants. The jobs attracted workers from Latin America, dramatically changing the town's demographics. So today, almost a third of the town's population is Hispanic or Latino, making it one of the most culturally diverse small towns in North Carolina. And speaking of population of the town and the diversity of the town, let's dive into some of that. So here in Siler City, the population is 8,159 and the median age is 34.6. And that right there is an awesome Coca-Cola ghost sign mural right there on the side of that building. Go refreshed. Nice. Okay, so next up, let's look at the demographics of the town. So 57.3% is white, 20.68% is black, 0.09% is Asian, 0.11% is American Indian, mixed race is 6.54%, and other race is 15.28%. So now let's look at income. Income per capita here in Siler City is $23,403, which is slightly below the North Carolina and the national average. And then the median household income is $38,977. And then let's scroll down a little bit further. Let's look at the poverty rate. Poverty rate here in Siler City is kind of troubling. It's not a crazy number, but 21.9 is definitely above the North Carolina 16.8 and the national of 15.1%. And now we're going to look at crime. Total crime is 2,628 per 100K, or an easier way to look at that is just 2.6 per 1,000 people. Now that's slightly above the North Carolina and the national average, but it's not too bad. And then when we look at that in a percentage form, total crime is 24% higher than the national. Violent crime is 33% higher than the national. And the property crime is 22% higher than the national. Okay, and right here on 2nd Street is another mural. Siler City, North Carolina, celebrate diversity. And this is supposedly one of the most diverse towns, or small towns, here in North Carolina. And look at that one, that's very colorful. It's a rabbit with some mountains and a little sunset going on. Okay, so I was just speaking to some locals here in the area, and this is called the Chatham Rabbit, Siler City, North Carolina. And there's some fun stuff with this, the whole Chatham Rabbit thing. As we look over here, just a few minutes ago, I seen this wall mural of a rabbit. And the story goes that Siler City used to raise some really large, big rabbits, and they was kind of known for that, and they would ship them off, like, you know, by the truckload. So that makes a little bit more sense why that rabbit is right there on that wall mural. This is kind of one of the things that the town was known for. I just walked inside of this store called Fragments, and they was giving me a little bit of history about this building right here. This building, this old structure, I like that yellow and this, like, these cutouts right here, these like openings, that looks so cool. So they said that used to be an old hardware store way back in the day. And then at one time it was an insurance, they sold like insurance out of there. And then finally, I think the last thing that was in there, they told me it was some kind of a cafe. So there's a lot of cool stuff. And they said, don't leave this street until I show you this hotel right here, because it dates back a pretty good way. So let's go over there and check that out next. Okay, so right here is the old hotel here in town. It's called Hotel Hadley. Dates back to 1908. That is pretty awesome. And then look right here on this old power pole. It's a shoe. Somebody just stuck a shoe right there on the side of that pole. And that's kind of fitting, because this blue store right here, this blue brick building, this is an old shoe repair shop way back in the day. Okay, I've made my way over here to this hardware store parking lot and come across another old mural. You can see it says parking up there. Look at that old Zenith sign up there. It says the quality goes in before the name goes on. But this is an old Ace hardware store mural right here. And the main reason I know it's Ace Hardware is because right there in the middle of the mural itself, it says Ace Hardware, thank you. And then also the gentleman that's getting the coffee maker for this lady, he's actually has the name Ace on his coat, and his name's Jimmy. Okay, so I just wanted to show you one last mural before we leave. This is an old look of Siler City, dating back over 100 years ago. How cool is this? Looks like we have us a little mural over here. R. Ruth Smith, October 26, 1910 to February 3rd, 2006, was a most generous patron of this mural. From its conception, she was a longtime stockholder and officer of the Farmers Alliance store. The mural is dedicated to her memory. 2006. That is so cool. And then down here we have some more information. Pim Hobbs, 1924-2006 Siler City Mural Society founder. Marine Air Warning Squadron number 7. All right. I guess all that being said, let's go ahead and get back in the truck and drive across the beautiful North Carolina landscape, the countryside, and see what else we can see. We got to go see another town, and there's a few more little roadside relics we got to go check out. One of them in particularly is a spring with some healing properties, some people even say. Okay, so just several miles outside of Siler City is Mount Vernon Springs. And this here was actually a resort at one time. But long before the resort era began, the natural mineral springs were known locally and used for their supposedly healing properties. Native Americans are believed to have used the springs first. Later, Quaker settlers traveling through the region also stopped here. Early names for the springs included Indian Springs, Quaker Springs, Dixon Springs, Healing Springs, and last but not least, Hickory Springs. And I will tell you this, they do have a very small little parking area here at the springs. This gentleman is actually filling up a few gallon jugs worth of water to take home, I'm sure, here at Mount Vernon Springs. Here on this signage they have here, this granite, says circa 1837. So in and around this area of the springs started developing into a resort in the 1830s. More specifically around 1837, when an old war veteran named William Bowen, he built a small inn and cottages here for visitors seeking the healing waters. By the early 1850s, a larger motel was built and called Mount Vernon Springs Hotel. So visitors back in the day would actually travel the very rough roads across the state to hopefully get some treatment from these healing springs. And that kind of leads me to the decline of the resort itself. The popularity of Mount Vernon Springs began fading in the early 1900s. Reasons include better roads and transportation making other resorts easier to reach. Changing vacation habits, the Great Depression also played a part in it. The resort itself finally closed in 1831, and most buildings were eventually dismantled or reclaimed by the forest. And one more little nugget about the springs themselves, they were actually added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1987. And I'm just gonna walk in here and kind of see what they have. You got an old church right here. Look, right here is a old photo view at Mount Vernon Springs. Look at this, pictures of the old academy that was located up the road across from the springs. This building burnt down in the early 1980s. And yes, that is a goat pulling a cart. Look at that goat. That goat's hard at work. And right here is some more pictures. Right here is the hotel at Mount Vernon. That there is what the hotel looked like back in the day. That is pretty cool. And right here is a picture of the spring house, bottling building, and old bridge in the background, which this here is the bridge that I showed when we arrived here. This old bridge is just off to the right yonder's way, right past that picnic table. And right here is the springs. And it's pretty easy. You just walk down these steps. And right here is the springs, and you can bring your jugs down here and fill them up. And you have some nice cool waters. Kind of wish I would have brought a cup. So I'd like to taste it, but unfortunately I do not have a cup to even taste the water today. But that's okay. This is unlike when I go to South Carolina to their healing springs that's down below Columbia. I've done several videos and several visits of that healing springs. This is a lot closer. I didn't even know about this place until I got into town. So pretty awesome little spot out here in the countryside, not too far outside of Siler City. So all that being said, let's go ahead and continue on to our next small town. You know, anytime I travel, I always like to see some abandoned locations, and that right there is pretty awesome looking old store. And right down here, down old 421, there's also another place right here. Looks like an old store. This old overhang right here. Look at that. Yeah, that is awesome. Okay, let's carry on. Okay, I've made my way down 421 a little bit further now. I'm in the small town of Goldston. Goldston is a small town here in Chatham County with rich railroad and farming history. Today, fewer than 400 people live here. But in the early 1900s, it was an important rural trading stop. So before the town of Goldston actually existed, the area was mostly farmland and timberland. Farmers in this part of Chatham County grew tobacco, cotton, and corn. Goldston's real growth began in the late 1800s when the railroad arrived. The rail line connected rural Chatham County with larger markets in the Piedmont. The community became known as Goldston after a local family that owned land and businesses here in the area. Railroads allowed farmers to ship cotton, tobacco, and lumber. As a result, Goldston quickly developed into a small trading center for the surrounding farm areas. In the early 20th century, Goldston had several businesses that served the agricultural community. They had general stores, a post office, a train depot, cotton gins, and small mills. Farmers from miles around would travel to Goldston to sell their crops, buy supplies, and catch the train. The town was officially incorporated in 1891. So Goldston is very much a small town. Today the population is about 392 people with a median age of 32.8 years. So now let's take a look at the demographics. 94.13% is white, 2.81% is black, 0.26% is Asian, 2.81% is mixed race. And then let's look at income. Income per capita here in Goldston is $22,713, which is slightly below North Carolina and the national average. The median household income here is not terrible. It's $40,833, with North Carolina at $48,256 and the national at $55,322. Not too bad. Now when we scroll down a bit, we can look at the poverty level here. Only 6.6%, which that is well below the North Carolina and the national at 16.8 and 15.1% respectively. Then let's look at crime. Crime here in Goldston is not too bad neither. It's only 2,509 per 100K or 2.5 per 1,000. So when we break it down into percentages, it looks like this. Total crime is 18% above the national average. Violent crime is 12% above the national average, and property crime is 20% above the national average. So I just spoke to some locals across the street here, and I was trying to get a little information about these buildings right here. And the only thing they could really tell me for sure is this brick building right here used to be the old Goldston grocery store. And as you can see, this here like an old hair salon right here in this area. And they would just kind of give me a little bit of nuggets about the town and what a vibrant little town it used to be until new 421, the 4-lane 421 just outside of town here, was built, and it took all the traffic away. And so Goldston has really struggled over the years. And the main reason I walked over there is to ask them about this, because this is awesome. Look at this place. Get around this old holly bush here, holly tree, I mean. But I thought there have got to be some history with this old place. And they was like, yeah, it dates back, you know, probably since the town's been here. And they were the best guess they had. You know, I said, was it a hotel or something? And he was like, one of the guys, the only guy over there piped up. He said he thought it might be some kind of like a bed and breakfast type of stuff way back 100 years ago. But since then, it has just kind of sat here dormant for years. I mean, that guy's lived here pretty much his whole life. And he said he can never really remember it, you know, being anything. But yeah, I thought this was a pretty cool looking structure here. Yeah, I gotta say, I really like these buildings right here. That looks pretty sweet. But one more thing I want to talk about before we leave is right here along this rail line. There used to be an old depot right here in town. And the depot was built around 1884 for the Cape Fear and the Yadkin Valley Railway. A local resident here by the name of Jerry Gaines saved the building from demolition by moving it a few blocks away. In 2017, the Gaines family donated the depot to the North Carolina Railway Museum. Oh, check out this plaque right here in the middle of town. It said Goldston Centennial Park, erected 2007 in celebration of our town's 100th year. And they also have another little like granite plaque over here for Joseph John Goldston, which is what the town is named after, is his last name. And then look right here next to that. You might notice this gentleman. If you've ever been a fan of country music, Charlie Daniels, who was born in Wilmington, North Carolina, but supposedly Mr. Daniels graduated from Goldston High School in 1955. I did not know that. How cool. That is really awesome. The devil went down to Goldston. All right, I think that's going to wrap it up here in Goldston. And we're going to make our way to one more stop. There's a certain abandoned bridge that we're going to go check out next. This is going to be pretty cool. I've always wanted to go see this bridge. I've heard about it before. Never really been in this area to go feast my eyes upon it, but today it's going to happen. Okay, I made my way several miles outside of Goldston, and this here is the Deep River Camelback Bridge, which was constructed in 1930 by the North Carolina State Highway Commission. At the time, the engineers needed a strong bridge to carry vehicles across the Deep River, connecting the small farming communities. So the bridge gets its nickname from its arched steel truss design, which looks like a hump on the back of a camel when viewed from the side. Technically, it's a camelback Pratt-through truss bridge, a design popular in the 1900s because it used less steel and other designs, and it could span longer distances across waterways. So this camelback truss bridge was actually closed to vehicle traffic in 1992, and the reason for that is because it's too narrow for more modern vehicles. That is why they built this new, more modern bridge right over here. And I remember when I was a kid growing up in the late 70s and early 80s especially, we had bridges in our neighborhoods that we would use, and when you would drive up to them, you would have to stop and flash your lights like if it was at night or something and let the other car pass by, because all the bridges back in that time period, at least in Iredell County where I grew up and in a lot of other rural places here in North Carolina, just had these real narrow bridges. And as you've noticed over the years, these big trucks, you got these big Ford F-350s, these big diesel trucks, you know how big they are. Yeah, you would never fit two of them across a very narrow bridge like this. So that was not going to work. And not just that, this bridge is fairly long. A lot of the bridges that we had in my neighborhood was nowhere near this long. They might have been, you know, a third of the length of this old camelback bridge. One thing that really makes me happy is they did not tear down this bridge. They actually added it to the National Register of Historic Places in 1995 because it is a rare camelback truss bridge. Dude, I think that is so awesome. I wish more places would take some of their old history and actually showcase it for future generations to be able to see. One more interesting detail about this old bridge I want to talk to you about is it was originally built in 1901 for a different river crossing here in North Carolina. After the structure collapsed in 1930, the steel truss was moved and reused here at this Deep River site. All right, my friends, that is going to wrap it up for me today. I had a great time and I got to see some cool towns today and some fun little roadside relics that are kind of scattered and hidden across the state. And this right here, this Camelback Bridge was really, really awesome to come here and check this out here at the Deep River. So had a lot of fun. And all that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Until next time, friends, I'm the Hitchhiking Yeti. And I will see you in my next adventure. Y'all stay safe. Hope to see you all again soon. It's a fun little outing today. It's so peaceful out here. Birds are chirping. It's very, very nice. And my wife and my little niece, they're taking some photos. They're cheesing. All right. Hope y'all have a good one. Thanks for watching.